So hello everyone, it's Kerry Griffiths, the Divorce Financial Planner, Willow Brook Lifestyle Financial Planning. I'm back with you again, and this time I have a lovely guest with me, Dr. Constantina Stamou, who is a life and relationship strategic intervention coach. And we met online through LinkedIn, professional connection there, and we talked and we had a lot in common and a lot of thoughts and feelings around life and around how we help and support the women that we work with that were really similar. One of the things that we talked about specifically was a tipping point that the women that we work with often experience. And for me, it tends to happen for my women at very different times. Each woman is really quite unique and bespoke in that the trauma and the emotion of divorce, there comes a point when it tips into the ability to see and reimagine a post-divorce life. It's actually one of my most favourite parts of working with women who are getting divorced. That part where we can actually start to plan their post-divorce life and what they want that to look like. And it's a chance for them to actually start from scratch and actually think, what do they want to be seen for? What do they want to be? What do they want to do? And how do they want to live? And that's something then that I can put as a financial planner, the plans in place financially so that we can start to achieve that. But Dr. Constantina, she has a different support and approach, and she can help women in this situation take that even further forward and get them thinking about their post-divorce life, their relationships post-divorce, and how all of that manifests. So I won't say any more. I'll hand you over to Constantina and she can tell you a little bit more about herself. Over to you.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you. So I have always been interested in relationships. I have always been drawn to how they work and how we can make them even better, how we can have flow in conversations and feel good about ourselves and feel good in the presence of another person and the things that we get to do together. So when there was the opportunity to train as a relationships coach and explore this specialty even more, I took it.
Yeah.
So when we were having this conversation on LinkedIn the other day, it was very interesting indeed to find our common ground and to see how much we share and believe about what it would be good to have in life going forward post-divorce. And of course, one of the things that comes up is indeed, how do we think about relationships following such a traumatic experience often? And so a lot comes down to how a woman decides to approach life after divorce. Is exactly like you said, for a lot of women, there is this tipping point.
Yeah.
And so once they reach it and they're able to reimagine themselves and they're able to redefine a vision and a purpose and new meaning for their life going forward, then that boosts them in terms of, it gives them a boost of energy and a spring into their step.
It's really visible, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. To go forward and to kind of now work with, in a sense, a little bit like with a blank canvas.
Yes.
Especially if they don't have any children from their previous marriage. So it's a wonderful creative time, and it opens up a lot of opportunity to explore and to decide what is suitable for oneself right now, how to redefine their identity. How do they fit now in the social circle that they are? Do they still want to be there? Do they need to change their lifestyle? Do they need to rethink about their friendships or expand their social support network?
I love that. Yes.
Yeah. But also it's a wonderful opportunity once they're ready for that, and once they kind of have been able to reach a point where they can forgive themselves for the experience of the divorce, for the experience of that previous marriage, or they can perhaps potentially one day forgive their ex for whatever experiences they shared during the marriage and the reason for the divorce, to move forward and consider meeting a new partner. But what's crucial is the way they will handle themselves post-divorce and the way they will decide to handle relationship with the ex-husband is what will also greatly influence the way they're going to meet the new partner and the way the new relationship is going to go and it's going to move forward.
You know what I loved about what you just said is the way that they choose to do that. You know, a conscious choice about how they choose to handle that.
Yes, and often it's not very obvious because we tend to have our feelings and we tend to have to be kind of not just surrounded by them. We swim in our feelings often, and it's so very hard it becomes very hard to see outside of that often. So if there is a lot of anger, let's say post-divorce, there's been a lot of hurt and disappointment because the feelings are so real and we experience them and we stay in them. It becomes very hard to even consider that we might not need to have them, or we can decide to gently change them, or that by making other conscious choices, those feelings will settle. Eventually they settle. I mean, the good thing about the process of divorce is that it's very predictable.
Yeah.
So depending on how one starts it and what sort of decisions the person makes in their first year, it's very it makes it much easier if you're looking from the outside to kind of predict the path that the situation is going to take. So in that sense, it's very possible to choose to actively resolve as many issues that the divorce has brought up, to smooth as much as possible the relationship with the ex-husband, knowing consciously that the more of those issues are resolved, the more open the heart is going to be when the new partner comes along, the more ready the person is going to be to enter a new relationship with less fear, more willingness to trust, more confidence in themselves and how they can handle any potential situations. And perhaps this sometimes comes up also with a need to learn maybe a set of skills that they were not in place before, which potentially could have contributed to the divorce, but is not necessarily obvious at first. So sometimes it might have to do with assertiveness, for instance, or self-care, or confidence in one's work, or sometimes even in just communication skills in general.
Yeah. So kind of a learning then, kind of learning where and how you want to move things forward, and kind of learning maybe some skills that would help you do that, to be able to be in a position to proactively move forward in a way that suits you in the life that you want to live. And actually a lot of women are starting to work with a coach during the very traumatic parts of divorce. But there's a lot of benefit in working with a coach as these parts of your life development post-divorce, aren't there?
Yes, absolutely. Because, of course, we can all overcome situations on our own. It's just we're so close to the problem sometimes. And so the most painful parts we tend to avoid.
Yeah.
And sometimes we are thinking about, okay, I can figure this out on my own, but it might take much longer because you have to go through trial and error.
True.
And that is in itself is another learning curve, and it's another potentially challenging or painful process depending on the mindset that we have. So what a coach does is they offer support. They offer another brain, let's say, to process and brainstorm the information. But it's also there's a what's the word? There's the feeling of friendship that a coach can bring. Like, I'm on your side. I'm there for you. I'm rooting for you. And if there are any struggles and challenges that you have on the way, okay, let's look at it and let's unpick it. So you can really see the way that you need to move forward. And I'm there. I will be there celebrating with you. So you have really a buddy in a way along to kind of help you with that. And also sometimes coaches have an experience of the area that they are working on. So you also have another person's path that they've walked down on. And you kind of know, okay, if this person has walked that path and they managed to get out to the other side, that means I can do it too.
Yeah.
It's part of the human experience.
That makes perfect sense. So for you, what you're passionate about really is helping clients to really clarify their future relationship goals so they can move towards them. How do you go about there? Is there anything practical that the women watching this could take away from kind of the approach that you take?
My personal mission is to do whatever I can to bring people together. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily, obviously, if they're in case of divorce, for instance, if there is a couple is separated and is divorcing and they do not have children, these two people, they don't necessarily have a reason to be together anymore. So that's an easier, let's say, situation in some sense. But if there are children in the marriage or in the previous marriage, what has happened is the relationship is not working anymore in the couple, and so that's what changes. But the family is still there, so that means right now the family is being redefined.
Yes.
And so to be able to do that, one of the key things, and it's a practical thing as well, one of the things that an ex-spouse needs to do to make this transition as smooth as possible is to consciously and willingly decide to take a step back and see the person that the ex-partner for who they are. And in that case, and in this case in particular, it could be this is a person that I had my children with, and this person really wants to spend time with my children. So blocking them or fighting them or making this request as hard for them as possible, because I have experienced the hurt and the betrayal potential and all the hard experiences that have come. At some point, it's really important to consider that this will need to have an expiry date, because if it doesn't, then the children are going to be affected.
Yeah.
And so considering being willing to see the ex-husband as a person who is also very strongly connected with the children, and allowing them to have that space, and or looking for ways for both of you to being able to spend time with the children in a smoother way as possible, it will only help the relationship going forward. But that's also a skill to put forward to the new relationship, because you're learning how to see another person separately from you and separately from the I guess the relationship that you have, and you're learning in a way to accept them and respect them as they are.
That makes sense.
Without fighting them, yeah.
For women who struggle with that, because the concept and the idea makes absolute sense, but in the heat of the moment, that's so very hard to do, to remove yourself and see objectively. Are there any things that women can be doing to kind of just make sure that they're not having kind of a reaction to how things are going, that they can take the anger or the bitterness or the betrayal out of kind of their feelings towards their former spouse?
The thing is, these are strong feelings and heavy feelings, and what we don't often realize is that they have a wiring behind them. It's not just a feeling, it's the brain is wired in that way for that feeling to be strong in that moment, right? So as long it takes time for a mind to create those connections, to have so much anger. So it means that it will take as much time to undo them quite often in some sense. So to rush this process is not very beneficial. So there will be what you call it, like a spilling of emotion at some point. It will have to work its way through one system in another way if it's not expressed and processed well.
But it's like retraining your brain, retraining all of those wirings.
And allowing oneself to have their feelings without squashing them or without denying them. So it's not about not refusing. It's not about saying, I'm not angry in the same way like saying the grass is not green or the wall is not white, right? It is. If it is, it is. But what often helps is one of the best practices is to start shifting focus. So instead of focusing on how I've been hurt or what my ex-husband has done to me, is, especially if I have children, for instance, what would be the best thing for my children? So really become a children-focused family, as opposed to continue the struggle between the ex-partners. But if someone doesn't have children and they still struggle with that experience of what happened between them and their partner, then the process is still similar. It's about refocusing. It's about choosing what is best for them. And at this point in life would be, how can I look after myself? How can I love myself? How can I stay focused on my vision for myself and for the future and the purpose and meaning that I'm creating for myself?
Absolutely. And staying focused on a vision, you need that vision to start with, don't you? And it can be a real kind of foundation to have that time to think about what you imagine this life to be and how it could be full and complete for you. And then that can help you in the darkest times to actually have that perspective and that direction, and that ability to make a choice rather than just react. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you ever so much. Is there anything else that you had wanted to talk about that we haven't covered yet? Or have we covered the most of it?
We've covered, yes, we've covered most of it. Maybe perhaps a thought for a lady that has gone through divorce and has an existing family with children at the moment, is that when potentially the time comes to choose a new partner, that there is quite high chances that that partner will also be somebody who has gone through divorce or who has had children themselves, or they might still be in touch with their ex-wife because they have to co-parent. So at some point, there is a potential new scope of relationships to manage that could be coming along. And it's fine, it's great. It means that there is a beautiful learning there to have wonderful relationships to create. There could be beautiful friendships, even with an ex-wife sometimes to create, or with new stepchildren. And it's something to actually also, something that somebody could look forward to, that it could work well. We don't have to fall into the traps of the stories from the Hollywood movies, or that there was always going to be a struggle with an ex-wife. There would always be a struggle with stepchildren. There are very many families, and by nuclear families, who have made it a success because they put the children first, when they put their mutual connection and flow and respect as their focus. They put it as number one. They made it a priority. And so because of that, things have worked.
I love that. And like you say, there is beautiful learning. I think the word you use there is beautiful learning to be had, because there will have been an awful lot learned from the previous divorce and from the decision about how you move forward, and your new relationship, same there. But then together there's a whole new set of learning and direction to take, and to kind of carve out a path in the knowledge of what you have learned from your previous paths.
Yes, absolutely. Because also, we've used to think about divorce as something that is not to have, and we should be ashamed of it, or we should be afraid of it. But in the end of the day, it's just another relationship that hasn't really worked, and it closed. Okay, it may be closed a little bit more officially because we had to go through a divorce procedure, for instance. But really, it's just another relationship that has finished, and maybe it was the right thing that it did, because now we're entering a new phase in our life. We need something else. So to allow ourselves to have that flexibility in mind and body, for the body to feel it, I think it's a beautiful gift we can give ourselves.
Thank you ever so much. Well, absolutely positive messages today, and I think this will be a really uplifting video for the women on this channel to be watching. Thank you so much. I'm going to put Constantina's links, and if you need to contact her, you want to find out more, then they'll be in the description below, so please do. And I follow her on LinkedIn as well, so you'll find her details there if you want to contact her that way. Thank you very much, and we'll speak again soon.